Health business owners look for shiny marketing objects. So their blood transfusion is Google ads, Facebook ads, doctors' visits, newspaper ads, whatever are the fancy shiny things that they can pump more new patients into my business. That's the blood transfusion. But that's the worst thing they can do. They've already got leaking systems. They've got high cancellation rates. They've got people not following up. They've got therapists saying, give me a call in a month. And you're spending good money pouring more blood into this body, but you haven't stopped the leaks first.
Welcome to How to Build a Profitable Nutrition Business. If you love nutrition and you love helping people and you want to be in the game long enough to keep doing that, then this is the podcast for you. Let's get into it. Welcome to How to Build a Profitable Nutrition Business. Today, we are really fortunate to have an amazing guest by the name of Paul Wright. So Paul's a physiotherapist and former owner of multiple allied health clinics across Australia, of which he rarely visited, would you believe? Can you imagine that as a business owner? He's the author of the Amazon bestseller, How to Run a 1-Minute Practice. He's the founder of Practiceology, a health business freedom program, and he's helped thousands of allied health professionals from a staggering 57 countries across the world earn money, work less, and enjoy their lives. Wow, what a resume, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, I can't wait to hear what I'm going to say. It's fantastic.
Mate, what a journey. Can you run me through your career? Because you weren't always a physiotherapist. You were a PE teacher, I believe.
Well, for not very long, I grew up in a small country town, a place called Canamble, out northwest New South Wales, Australia. And there wasn't a physio inside, Chris. There was a couple of doctors and maybe a dentist, but I didn't know what a physio was. So I ended up finishing high school. And what does a sporty sort of kid do? Because you're always sporty in the bush. I decided to be a PE teacher. So that'll do. So I applied to Newcastle Uni or Newcastle College in those days and started my phys ed course. And there's always sliding doors moments, Chris, when you think about your life. I ended my third year of phys ed, and I found a physio at a party. I didn't know what a physio was. And she told me about this physio gig. She was a fourth year student in Sydney. And I said, wow, this physio, what's that about? Injuries, anatomy, physiology, rehab. And I was sort of into that space. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. So then I applied to Sydney Uni or Cumberland College in those days to be a physio, to study the physio course as a mature age student. And the sliding door is I get the letter back. And the letter said, I'd been accepted as a mature age student to Cumberland College. And I'm sitting there on Newcastle Beach, sun's down, I'm feeling really, really, really sweet. Do I really want to go to Sydney? Do I want to go for another 4 years of uni? Decided to do it. And did four of the hardest years of my life at Sydney Uni, Chris, at Cumberland College, like tough going wasn't an academically smart guy, but just had to work hard. And we had some of the phys ed courses. We did, no disrespect to Newcastle College of Advanced Education, but we had days at phys ed, mate. We had the morning subject was cricket and the afternoon was tennis. So to go to Cumberland College and get serious for 4 years, that was a real eye opener. So,
wow, mate, I resonate with that a little because my background was an electrician. And so I decided to be a dietitian later in life, in my sort of mid-20s, and going back and doing chemistry and biology, which I loved it, but it was like, head down, bum up.
What was interesting, like Newcastle was a riot. I had a great time at Newcastle College. We had toga parties. There was party from start to finish. I turned up first day at Cumberland College, and the library was full, and there was no party going on. They were into it, and I thought, okay, this is, and I'm thinking, where's the toga party? Where's this happening? And it just wasn't going on. It was a hard 4 years, but I did that, graduated, ticked the box, started. I did a year in the public health in Eastern Suburbs, and pretty quickly, Chris, I think I had an entrepreneurial streak. I think I wanted to open my own practice, and
I was going to ask you that.
Looking back on it, that might have been why I wanted not to be a PE teacher. I think I would have been good at it. I would have liked it, but I would have been working for someone else for the rest of my life. And I don't think I'm a great employee. Essentially.
Yes.
So that might have been why I decided to do physios. I think I knew I could run a business as a physio, possibly. So
were there any signs of that? Any signs of that as a kid, Paul? Like, were you as an entrepreneur? No?
No, didn't have a thought about the business. I remember saying to a guy on a work site once, I was working for $5 an hour with my dad, as he was an electrician. Interesting enough, I was helping him at $5 an hour. And I thought, oh yeah, $5 an hour at 40 hours a week, that's $200. I could do that. Never thought about owning the business. No idea.
Yeah.
So, and funny enough, looking back on it, when you think about it, I don't think I didn't really look at the options of owning a physio business. And we'll talk about some of the mistakes we make later on, but I just fell in love with the idea of being a physio. I didn't really think, is there a market for that? Can I run a business doing that? I didn't really know at that time.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be a physio, which
is great.
Is stupid.
Most
stupid way to run a business.
Well, yeah, but most health professionals don't get into their profession to make money, and this is why podcasts like this is so important. Is because we're traditionally not great at thinking about that money side of it. We're there to help people. That's our sort of inner drive, and so many nutrition businesses tend to fall over within a certain period of time because they don't have that financial knowledge or nous to actually make a go of it.
And it's okay to say you're not interested in money. We get this a lot in our practiceology clients. It's okay to say I'm not in it for the money, and that's true. But when you've got kids, family responsibilities, mortgage, you got your mates selling their businesses for multi-millions of dollars, which I had, and I'm thinking, my business isn't worth that. What's going on here? Then you start to question your choices. But by that stage, it's sometimes too late. So don't go in. You go in with some element of financial competence to make a good decision about your career path. If you want to work as a charity, and that's great. And if you want to work as an employee, that's great. But just understand the limitations of that. You could understand the model.
Well, the light bulb moment, if you like, for me was my wife, whose business background, and she was like, you actually can't provide the service you want to provide if you're giving it away. You've got to be profitable so that you can give more away. And that, took a while to sink in. I'm a bit slow, but eventually we got there, So
there's an expression in that, Chris, if they don't pay attention.
Yes, so true.
And it's true.
It really is. Yeah.
And especially in dietitians and nutrition, you can go online and get a lot of stuff for free. You can go when there's dietitian services and nutritional services available in public health, is there a market for this? But we talk about it in some of our presentations. Like we've got lots of clients that get caught up in charging appropriate fees for their service because they think, well, I can get it somewhere else for nothing. Well, I can get, like physio in the UK, for example, they can go national health. And there's physio available in Australia at public health, and there's nutrition available as well. But they say it's free. Well, I'd argue heavily it's not free. You're not choosing your provider. You're not choosing their qualifications. You're not choosing the frequency of consult because that's determined by the number of hours that therapist in the public system is available. You're getting under-serviced like nothing else. It's not free. There's a lot of costs involved in that just aren't just the tangible costs.
Mate, I 100% agree with that. And I come from the hospital system. That was where I sort of, started off. And you sort of get stuck in that mindset of trying to replicate what the hospital's doing. But it's atrocious in the private system because exactly like you say, you're under-servicing your clients. Yeah. You need to be seeing your clients. And that was something I struggled with as well. When I set up, I look back on it and I'm embarrassed. Like I'd see someone and say, yeah, just come back in a month because that was kind of what we did at the hospital because we couldn't handle it. And I'm like, and then they wouldn't come back or they hadn't got the results. And, again, I eventually got to where I needed to go, but I was slow to get there.
Well, I'll give you my classic. One of my favorite stories I talk about is when I graduated from Sydney Uni as a physio, one of my first jobs was in private practice, was at a physio clinic in Chatswood in Sydney. And I got this young kid came in and did an anterior cruciate reconstruction. And I thought I knew all about it. I thought I was great. Like I did every test under the sun. I gave him 1,000 exercises. I spent a lot of time with him and I sent him off, Chris. And my innovative rebooking strategy was just like you said. I said, you've got plenty to do there. Give me a call in a month or so and let me know how you're going. That was my rebooking strategy. The owner of the practice heard of my innovation and hauled me into the office and just tore strips off me. She said, this kid needs mobilization, manual therapy, soft tissue release. He's going to be... And interesting enough, when you think about our baggage, the baggage that we carry as professionals, all I could hear while she was tearing strips off me was, you're only interested in the money.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
That's all I could hear. I talk about in my presentations a thing called the Cumberland curse. See, I went to Cumberland College, so that's my curse. My curse came from Cumberland College to think about the money all the time. That was the curse that I got from, and that's a public hospital curse.
Yeah.
But this kid, and looking back on it now, she was so right, and I was just underserving this kid like nothing else. I don't know if he ever got any better because he probably went somewhere else after that diabolical rebooking strategy.
Yes.
But I did it, and I've got a lot better at it now. And we work really hard with our clients to get their heads right because they carry this baggage, Chris. They carry this
Yeah.
idea that money, and we do a lot of work on it because it's a real pain for a lot of health professionals.
Mate, so important. And that baggage you talk about, I actually struggled with when we had staff. We had a team of 18, and
Yes.
telling them then, like I wanted them to know I'm not like, yes, the business profit I'm obviously focused on because I've got people to employ and mouths to feed and everything else. But it was communicating that message that you're talking about getting the best outcome for the client, but
Yeah.
doing it so they're not thinking, oh, he's just in it for the money. Like, so
And I'll tell you the tip on that, Chris. And we do it with our clients. They'll listen. Our clients' team will listen to us as the paid experts that are coming to help the business because they won't listen to the owner. There's
yeah,
a thing called the profit effect. That you're never a prophet in your hometown. Like you could go away and be the world's best dietitian, but you come back to the family and you're Chris.
yes, yeah,
You're never a prophet in your hometown. So,
no,
and your team see you with all the other struggles. So what we do with our clients, we do a lot of the training for our clients, and the teams attend. So we can
ah,
talk about underservicing, we can talk about rebooking, we can talk about cancellation reduction because it's coming from the paid external expert.
yes, brilliant,
But the owners can't do it because they don't listen to you because they've got their own. The
yeah,
owners have got their own Cumberland curse, and their team's got it as well.
yeah,
So
yeah. Oh, that
it's a nightmare. That's the way around it. We get paid. So I've been paid to go into practices. Like I got paid once to go to Quebec. Fantastic trip. And there was a big corporate group over there, franchise group. I think they had 100 practices, and I'm the paid speaker at this corporate event for these franchise groups. And all the therapists from all the clinics are in the room, and there's like hundreds of them. And I'm talking up the front about rebooking rate, cancellation rate, prices, and everything else. And I walked off stage, and one of the franchise owners, Paul, he said, that was fantastic. He said, but it's exactly what I've been saying to them for the last 5 years. But because you said it with an Australian accent, they listen.
yes, yeah, yeah.
The,
Oh,
the
how
external
true.
expert, the external
Yeah,
expert, and someone that's done it in hundreds of different practices.
yeah,
So the moral of the story: don't try and do all the training yourself. Look at how you can outsource some of the training because they'll listen to someone that says we've done this in 260 practices and it works every time,
yeah, yeah.
compared to you saying I'm going to try this.
Oh, that's
Just
brilliant.
it's really difficult to do as an owner.
Yes. Well, mate,
Anyway,
we've sold our practice. Otherwise, I would be
well,
engaging you immediately.
but there's the other thing: is it if it's not, you think about, it's okay when you want to sell the business, but what's it worth?
Yeah,
And you sold
exactly.
yours, but owners don't think about that until they come to sell it, and they think, oh, I'll get this ready to sell. What's it worth? Well, if it's just you doing all the patients,
That's right.
it's not really worth anything,
No, no,
really.
that's exactly right,
It's
mate.
worth anyway. So
Yeah.
back to our original story. I worked for that lady for a little while until she sacked me because I worked that I was chronically unemployable. So I just didn't learn well. I see something and think, gee, that's not how you do that. Even though I didn't know, there's
Yeah.
got to be a better way to that. So I was never really going to be a great employee. So as a result, I started my own practice pretty quickly. I was lucky the E-Myth was in my library very early by Michael Gerber. And it
Great
just
book.
was like a light bulb moment. I thought, hang on, the E-Myth is all about those that haven't read it. It's about how to run your business, how to get other people to run your business, really, or do the technical work in your business. So it's like the worst thing I could do as a physio is do the physio work in my practice. I needed to get other people doing that so I could focus on the business,
Yes.
on the marketing, on the recruitment. And that was the whole idea of the E-Myth. As a result of that, I end up opening 6 practices, 5 in Sydney, 1 in Newcastle, employed great people, had great systems. I was able not to go to the practices very much, stopped treating very early,
Yeah.
so I could focus on the business. And
Over what
then
period of time? Like, how quickly did you grow to that, Paul?
probably 3 or 4 years, I went from
Yeah.
one
Well,
to four, or one to four, and then to six. Yeah, reasonably quickly. And then And then the opportunity came to sell them. And like any good business, everything's always for sale. And the right buyer came along. And I was already starting the business mentoring business, Chris. So I'd started some programs. I'd started some helping other health business owners do what I was doing. So this was another opportunity. And the other thing it pointed out to me, Chris, one of the attractions for what I started doing was I've never liked having a ceiling on anything. I don't like limitations, probably like most entrepreneurs. So, which is why I probably ended up with 6 clinics, because if I had one clinic, I had so many rooms and I get so many billable hours, I had a ceiling of revenue. So I thought, well, I'll get another clinic. So then I expanded my ceiling of revenue, increased my cost, but I could revenue generate more.
Yeah.
And that followed on till 6. But even then, even with 6 clinics, a certain number of rooms, certain number of therapists, there was a ceiling. I didn't like that either. So part of my interest in doing what I did was I could have 1 million members of our software 1 minute practice. I could have lots of people in our coaching program. So I could have lots of members of our product, so buyers of our product. So I didn't have a ceiling of income.
Yeah, scalable.
Yeah, but that was my interest.
No.
Anyway, so as a result, I sold them, started doing this, and I'll be doing this for helping health business owners for the last 15 years, I think now. So.
Yes, well, I had the fortune of hearing you present at a conference a number of years ago, and it blew my mind. It was just that thinking. I remember one of the things you talked about was basically there was a number of key points that I still remember, and one of them was that whole client journey, and knowing how many appointments they need for, like if they come in with X condition, you're going to need X amount of appointments. And I actually went to the physio the other day, and the physio said, you're going to need 6 appointments up until this point. And I remember thinking, I wonder if he's been part of Paul's training.
But it's true, because what was my initial rebooking with that kid? Like what was that about? Give me a call when you need your next list of exercises.
Yes. And mate, the other thing that resonated with me just quickly, Paul, was the always employing. You always had someone, like you always had a job ad out, and it was about trying to build that team. And that was something that I took on that really helped our business. Like we didn't always have an ad out, but we always had people that were sending resumes, and I kept that dialogue open with them. And that was quite a good recruitment strategy, because when we needed to build the team, then we had that option.
Well, we do whole sections on recruitment. It's such a hot part of business, but it even comes back to the first thing you said, like the action plan, that conversion conversation, Chris. If I come into a dietitian, and hopefully they're saying something like, you need to be on our XYZ weight loss program, and this is what it entails, and it's weekly sessions for 6 weeks. So there's some sort of plan. It's not just here's your meal plan, go away and let me know how you go. Like that's poor. But the problem you've got, mate, is if you don't have a good recruitment system, you have real trouble enforcing your system. So let's say you say in your business, Chris, I want everyone to get a written plan. So every patient that comes into our practice, they get a written report, and then the plan is you're on our weight loss program. You need to see us once a week for the next 6 weeks. That's the plan. But if you've got therapists that come in and say, I don't like structure like that, I'll give me a call in a few weeks. They'll do their own thing because they're worried about money or their financial baggage or whatever they've got.
Yeah.
It's real hard if you have a low labor environment. It's hard for you to call that therapist in and say, hey, listen, Brian, this is how we do it at XYZ Nutrition. If you don't do this, you're out the door, mate.
Yeah.
You have trouble with that conversation if you don't have more labor available to you. So one of the real problems we have is if we don't have a recruitment system, we have to put up with the people we've got, even if they're incompetent.
Yes, yeah. And our practices were regional as well, so it was a little bit harder to recruit people.
You've got to be all over it. We've done whole presentations. What did I do that lecture once? I did 46 ways to get therapists into your practice as a recruitment session.
Yeah, right.
And I said in that presentation, go back. Old guys like me will say in the good old days, I could put an ad for a physio in the Saturday Herald in Sydney for $50 and get 20 applicants.
Yeah.
So that was great. But nowadays it's going to cost a lot more than that. And I can't just do one way. Like the thing I say 20 years ago, and even less than that, there was one way to get 20 applicants. Now, mate, there's 20 ways to get one applicant.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
You've got to be in everything. We talk about the oars in the water strategy. You've got to have all your recruitment oars in the water, because you never know which one of them is going to pull you a lead.
Yeah,
and that's why you got to always be recruiting, because otherwise, you would have had it. You get the text message from Brian on a Sunday afternoon to say, mate, I need to have a chat to you Monday morning about my wage structure, or whatever, and they'll sit you down and say, well, I'm if I don't get this, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Or someone's offered me this. Can you match it? Like, if you don't have options and other people, and I could talk at length because I love the topic. I'll give you this snippet though, because it's important for you guys. When I had my practices, I was always recruiting, and someone would contact me about an ad or about a lead or something that I'd put out there to get a lead. And I'd say, look, before you come in for an interview, I want you to go to our St. Leonard's practice, and here's the address. Just go up to the front desk, say you're here to have a look around, and let everyone know that Paul said you might be starting here. Just go and check it out. And this was inside a gym called Unlimited Fitness, which then became Fitness First in those days, and it was brilliant.
Oh, wow.
It had a 40-meter indoor pool, $3 million worth of rehab equipment. It was just spectacular. So here's my beady brain. I'm saying, okay, you want to work at Get Active Physio? I'll send you to one of our locations and just have a look around. So they would turn up at this multi-million-dollar facility, and our practice was inside there, and they'd be blown away. So part of it, they'd say, wow, I want to work there. But there was another part to my strategy. The other strategy was I wanted the current therapist to know that people were always coming through looking around.
That's genius.
So I didn't know it at the time it was that genius, but it was actually pretty good. So they'd say, I've spoken to Paul. He said to come and have a look around because I might be starting work here. And the physio, good on Brian, how you going? I'm Peter, how are you? I'm Mary, how you going? So they get to meet everyone. They'd walk around, what's your deal? I've just graduated. I'm just looking around. So all of my team knew there were options.
Yeah.
So they weren't going to pull the old Paul, if I don't do this, I'm leaving trick, because they knew, well, I can't match that. See you later. So it wasn't a big deal for me. But the other thing it did, by the time that person came for the interview, I was in charge.
Yes.
I was deciding whether they should work for me or not. That's because they wanted to. Mate, that's fantastic. When do I start? A lot of them started without even asking about money. They didn't even ask the wage. They
just
didn't
wanted
care.
to be part of the culture.
They just wanted to be part of that environment.
Wow.
Mind you, not all of them were as good as that, but I sent them to the best one.
Yeah, of course.
They were pretty good, but that was the best one. But that's how you got to approach everything. That's a system, Chris. That's a recruitment system that leads to retention of your systems that can then help you run a great business. That's how it works.
So just on that, just quickly, Paul, what about the flip side of that, of the retention? Because I know for us, the cost of losing staff was quite. We'd be looking at 6 months before one of our new grads would start making a profit in terms of retention and everything. So it's like, what strategies would you suggest in terms of client retention, staff retention?
Okay. Well, there is two. There is client retention and staff retention. I'm concerned. If I was working with your business, I'd be concerned that it took the new therapist 6 months to get profitable. So that would be a concern for me. I would be focusing initially, if I was working with your practice, for example, what training are you doing for these new therapists to get them profitable quickly? So I'd want that to be the forefront, because it shouldn't take 6 months. Really. So I'd be looking at and you go back a stage. This is from Gerber, and it's right. Successful businesses leverage ordinary people with great systems.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a terrible sort of thing to say, because people aren't ordinary. People are great, but they're not going to come in with great skills already. That they've got to be massaged and trained but you've got to do it as quickly as possible. So you leverage. So the idea of leveraging ordinary people with great systems is you want to get that person, that new therapist, and you want to find out what they know, and then you've got to make sure your practice is set up to help them succeed quickly.
Yes.
And that's the conversations, Chris. When you have someone like this, what do you say? How do you rebook them? How do you reduce the cancellations? What's the program that makes sure? And you can structure a lot of that, Chris. You could structure that like you could have, and I assume you did have, let's say, I'm just saying the weight loss program, the diabetes program. The idea of that is when you've got a really good program or a package of treatment, the package becomes the star, not the therapy.
Yes.
So what I'm getting at is you can be the owner of the XYZ diabetes prevention program or whatever it is, whatever you call it, and you can be you can name it something, and you're the only people that have that, Chris, in your practice. So you're suitable for our diabetes away prevention program, whatever you call it. Here's the details of the program. It's so many times a week. It's so much. This is what you get, blah, blah, blah. And the person just goes on the program. It's not about, you're not relying on the therapist saying, I need to see you in a month or 2 months, or it's not discretion. You've removed discretion at the operating level of your business.
Yeah, I love that.
You've removed, which is what you said. You took away from that lecture I did 10 years ago, the action plan, the rebooking system.
Yeah.
That's the system, Chris. That's not discretionary. You can't leave that up to the therapist, whoever comes in, hoping like hell that they rebook well. You can't run that risk because so many times you do it and you say, well, you got all these new patients. Where have they all gone? Like,
yeah.
Well, your rebooking rate's terrible. Well, I don't need to see them for 3 months. I don't need to see them for 6 months. Well, yes, you do. Here's the package. This person's suitable for the package. That's the booking plan. You remove that from them.
I love that.
That's how it works.
We put packages together. We had a mix of like Medicare, and then like Medicare, our bulk bills were our lead, like our loss leaders to come in and then introduce them to our package. So we had packages that was just that conversion that, you know, a lot of the new grads in particular probably struggled with. They got there, and I mean, I say 6 months. You know, some would have been quicker, but it was, you know, probably did need to go back and look at our training systems to make sure that we were sort of upskilling them a lot quicker than what we were. But mate,
the thing in, mate, too, with that, you never stop. Like we talk about marketing systems, and when you talk to practice owners about marketing, we've got a principle at Practiceology where you what we call is you hold off the blood transfusion. That's kind of the principle. This principle is hold off the blood transfusion, and the analogy is, and I'll share it with you. I do it in my presentations. But the analogy is I'm a mad surf ski paddler. So I'm out in the ocean paddling happily. All of a sudden, a Noah's Ark comes out and takes my leg off. Like horrific as it sounds, but now my surf life-saving mates are with me. They take me back to shore. There's an ambulance waiting, luckily there, and they come in. The mistake the ambulance would make would be to try and pump blood into me straight away. Like I'm losing blood like nothing else out of my leg. They think we've got to put more blood into him. So they put more blood in. That's a mistake because they haven't stopped the blood loss first.
Yes.
So the analogy of hold off the blood transfusion is saying you've got to don't put more blood into this body until you stop what's leaking out of it.
Okay.
Now, what you're thinking, what's the hell got to do with health business owners? Well, yeah, I'll get to it. Health business owners look for shiny marketing objects. So their blood transfusion is Google ads, Facebook ads, doctor's visits, newspaper ads, whatever are the fancy shiny things that they can pump more new patients into my business. That's the blood transfusion. But that's the worst thing they can do. They've already got leaking systems. They've got high cancellation rates. They've got people not following up. They've got therapists saying, give me a call in a month. And you're spending good money pouring more blood into this body, but you haven't stopped the leaks first. So the analogy for you guys, look at your internal systems. What are your therapists saying? What are your admin teams saying? When someone rings, and you want to talk about cancellations, someone rings, I need to cancel an appointment. No problems. Give us a call when you want to rebook it. Like if that's what your admin team are saying, if that's the script, do you really want to be putting good money into spending marketing money, getting that when they're doing that?
If they're not getting the experience as well, the client experience. Yeah. I love that. I'm certainly guilty of going for the blood transfusion first.
We all are, because that's what we think works. I can tell you, we've had so many clients come into Practiceology with all these glamorous marketing things, and we've just stopped it. I'm not going to spend another cent on that. I'm not going to watch you spend $5,000 a month on your Google ads for another instant until you fix this up. So
how true.
And you can sometimes sometimes you can stop their whole paid marketing. We've had clients where their whole paid marketing has stopped. We focus their attention on their current clients and their massive past data that they've just let slide and sit there for ages. And they say, where all the patients come from? Well, you had them. You already got their details. They already know, like, and trust you.
Yeah.
Why are you going after this audience that don't know? That's the most expensive audience you're going to get.
That is so true. My
we do it all
wife
the
and
time.
so my wife was my business partner, and we were talking about this when we recorded the first episodes of this podcast. And it was like,
Yeah.
one of our biggest mistakes was not nurturing the list that we owned.
Oh,
We were trying to build the list, and we already had a massive list.
so I can't
Oh,
tell you how many. You're not the only one. I can tell you how many clients we see that have big lists, been in business a long time, and I'll do a diagnostic with them, and they fill in the diagnostic and say, "How are you staying in contact with your past client?" And it's blank. Have you got a newsletter? No. Did you follow up phone calls? No. Have you got anything? No. So we're relying on them, and then when you finally, Chris, decide to sell your business, you guys would have done it. When you finally decide to sell your business, one of the biggest assets is your database. That's one of the
yes.
things that's got some value. And we talk about, when we're looking at practices, at valuing practices, we'll talk about recency and frequency. So I'll look at your database and I'll say, when's the last time these guys were actually in? What's the recency of this list? There might be 10,000 people on, but only 100 have been in the last 6 months. So what's the recency?
Yeah.
And what's the frequency? How often have you been in contact with this list?
Yeah.
If you've got none of those, this 10,000 person database that you thought was worth a fortune is almost worthless, because they don't know who you are anymore.
Oh,
I'll give you one of the best examples. Here's one of the best and simplest marketing things you guys can do. If we talk about simple marketing that's free, I do it with all of our clients when they start. Where are we now? Whenever month this goes live, go back to say it was, I don't know, let's say it's February, just to pull a month out of our bum. Go back to December. So go back in your software system to the month of December and get a report from your software system of every patient or client who had a consultation in December but haven't been in since. So they saw you in December, but they haven't been in since. And there's that list. And there might be 100 names on that list, whatever there is. And then, for God's sake, do something with the list. So communicate with the list. And we got all our people. One of my favorites is a phone call. Hey, Chris, Paul here from XYZ Dietitian, just following up on how you went with that thing we looked at, the weight loss thing back in December. Just checking in. How's it going?
yeah. Powerful, isn't it?
Just something. Like just some sort of message. If it goes to message bank, here's the script. My good friend Steve Jensen taught me this one. This is brilliant. He says, "Hey Chris, Paul here from XYZ. I've just got some important information about your diabetes, about your weight loss. I've just got some important information for you about insert problem."
Yeah.
That's a golden message to get on the message back. Hang on, Paul from the practice has called me about, he got some important information for me. I'm gonna return that call.
I better call back. Yeah.
I better call back. Important information. Yeah, mate, I was just looking through. I saw you had this diabetes issue back then. I just want to check in because there's this new report that's come out that's got this and this. I want to make sure you knew about it. Like that's something like that. Like you've got this list of people. So this 100 people list, here's the numbers. If you do that anywhere near competently, even incompetently, you'll probably still get 2 out of 10 of those people rebook into your diary. They'll need something. 2 out of 10.
Mate, that is absolute gold.
Go to any online marketing. Go to the wizards of the world and say, I want you to give me a 20% return on the number of people and see how they go. There's no one in the world that can give you those numbers.
No.
And there's one other list you need to do. And you wanted to talk a little about cancellations today. The other list you've got to have is anyone who cancels and doesn't have a future booking. So a cancel, no follow-up.
Yeah.
The only thing with that list, you can't wait weeks and weeks for that. You don't go back 2 or 3 months for that. That's done within 24 hours. That's done quick.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, got a message to say you cancelled your appointment tomorrow. Do you want to check everything's okay? I wanted to do this and this with you. We're up to week 2 of our weight loss plan. I just want to check in and make sure we can make that up somewhere. How's it going? What happened? Like that's, you should get an 8 to 10 return on that call. 8 out of 10 of those people should get back in your diary.
Oh, which is massive, isn't it? Like that's, yeah.
And now people will say, here's the rub. Professionals who have the Cumberland curse like I inherited, and like most of them do, they'll say, gee, I'm ringing past patients. Sounds a bit salesy to me. And especially if you tell them to do it, because they're saying you're only doing it, telling them because it's money in your pocket. So this is what goes on inside their head. And that's why when people like us come in and say, mate, this is just good customer service. You've got to follow this up because your reputation's on the line. That person's not coming back for some reason, and then you go deeply into why aren't they coming back, and then you start opening up a real door for these therapists because they think maybe they didn't like me. Maybe that comes back to their own self-esteem issues. Sometimes they don't make the phone call because they're scared to make the phone call of what the patient will say. That's
Yeah.
But here's the better option, or another option. People say to me all the time, Paul, who makes those calls? Who should make those calls? Let's say the follow-up calls from last December. Who makes those calls? Is it the therapist? Is it the admin person? Is it the owner who makes the call? I've got an interesting take on it. The person who makes the calls is the person who's got the best conversion.
Right. So not necessarily the clinician themselves.
The clinician might be hopeless.
Yeah,
the clinician might have such self-esteem issues about what happened in that consult. They're worried about what the patient's going to say. We've got clients. I've got one client, especially I can think of, who husband owns the practice. The she's not involved in the practice at all. She's doing other things, but he gets her to make the phone calls because she's exceptional on the phone. She's just brilliant. She's a people's person.
Yes.
And oh, that's no good. How'd you do that? Let's organise this. Oh, I went there the other day. I had lunch there. Whatever happened.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's Mary from XYZ Healthcare. I'm calling on behalf of Chris, who just wanted to follow up with this. What's happened?
I love that because I also love the fact, like thinking back in our practice, that for whatever reason, there may have been like a bit of a personality clash between the clinician and the client. And so that neutral person to call, I love that.
And even if, let's say you haven't got but I don't care. I really don't care who makes it. Someone makes it. But if I get my therapist to make the calls and they're doing a 0 out of 100 rebooking rate, even though I've trained them in it and they're better at it, and again, Chris, I've role played that conversation. I've had to have a lot of role plays with that to get them confident and comfortable that they're making a good call. If they just can't do it, then we'll find someone else. But therapists will then say, I hear this sometimes. Therapists say, I'm too busy to make the call. Well, let me look at your utilization rate. Let's go to your diary and what's utilization? How fully booked is the therapist? If that therapist is fully booked from start to finish and there's no gap in between, they've got a case. And I'd go, okay, fair enough. Then we'll find someone else to do. I'll train an admin. I'll train a junior therapist who's got some space to make those calls on your behalf. Someone's still going to make them.
Yeah.
But it might not be the therapist. But if you look at that therapist and they've got a utilization rate of 70% or less, well, what about this hour? What's happening in here? I've got to do my notes. No, you do your notes during your consult. You don't do it. Like you fix the systems inside the business. There's another massive leak. Anyway,
you could go on. Yeah. Oh, I mean, the gold nuggets you've given me today are making me want to go open up a practice again, Paul.
Well, okay. Well, here's the rub. That'll give you something to maybe finish with. I open my practices mistakenly, and because there's only really two drivers of a successful health business, Chris. There's two key drivers of any successful business. There's available market, meaning there's enough demand for your service. That's the first requirement. And there's available labor supply. There's enough available therapists or team members to provide that service. If I knew that 20 years ago, I might have been more selective about what I did with the practices, because you did it. Let's say you open regional practices. I'm going to open a dietitian practice in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Now, maybe there's enough demand. Spread the area out. There's enough people who need that service. So maybe there's enough market. But blind Freddie can see you're going to have trouble with recruitment. You're going to have trouble getting therapists to those locations. So you've already, and that's what happens is, as maybe happened to you and happens to lots of people, I opened the practice in my hometown because there was a huge demand for it. But then I find myself working 60 hours a week, and the thing is I can't get other therapists. That's because I didn't satisfy the second thing. And we fall in love. Here's what we do. We fall in love with the idea of being a therapist. I wanted to be, like I was a classic. I wanted to be a physio.
Yeah.
I didn't think for a second, was there available market for that? Was there a demand? Could I get labor? Like I didn't think any of that. I just wanted to be a physio. And then I wanted to open my own practice. So the universe doesn't care what I want. The market doesn't care what I want. My job's to fill the market. So your job, here's the big takeaway. If you want a successful business in any area, you find a desperate problem and you solve it.
Yes. Yeah.
And whatever that is, Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll always get what you want.
Yeah,
So
I like that.
what is there enough people that need dietitian services of a certain niche, of a certain condition in your area, in an area, and can you then staff it with available labor to deliver it?
That is great advice.
Then there's a chance you can open a successful business. Otherwise, you're going to be scrambling for available labor, scrambling for clients, or both.
Yeah. Well, mate, we were lucky in that there was demand for services, but recruitment, we got lucky with staff. We had great staff, but it wasn't as easy as recruiting, in the capital cities. And so, yeah, my wife and I talk about it all the time. We wouldn't start a regional practice again. We wouldn't. That thought of going through all that again, I couldn't do. So that's
you've got to go
advice.
in, and you've got to go in with we talk to our clients at the moment. They've got to be heavily invested in their recruitment. Like we talk about marketing. They say that now. I just think I should be marketing my practice, but a big part of marketing a practice is marketing a practice to other therapists. So you're not just marketing to patients. You've also got a marketing campaign to attract therapists. You've got two marketing things going on at the moment.
Yeah.
And we focus too much on patient attraction, not enough on therapist attraction. You've got to work on both of those.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're only as good as your staff, essentially, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
all the staff and systems.
You're only as good as the systems that the staff follow. How's
yes.
that?
Yeah.
Because I can make a pretty lame therapist pretty good. Like you can make a therapist pretty good with good systems. You can leverage people with great systems because great people are hard to find. So you've got to be able to broaden your labor pool and get people who may not be great yet, but you leverage them with a great system so they work well in that system. Look at McDonald's do it spectacularly.
They do, yeah.
Like you got 15-year-old kids that can't clean their room and they can run a business. How's that work? Because they're so tightly controlled in their systems.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Paul, look, I mean, you've been so generous with your time and you've given us so much information that, I mean, if anyone starting or owns a practice now would have got enough out of this talk simply to start, driving a bit more profit in their business. If someone wants to work with you, Paul, what's the best way they can get in touch? And I imagine there's going to be quite a few.
Easiest place is our main website. Head to mypracticeology.com. So mypracticeology.com. There's a practice survey you can fill in there to get on our list, and we'll send you a downloadable copy of the book, How to Run a 1-Minute Practice, which in itself is a great little read. On that site, mate, you can also have a chat with me. So you can click on the button there and organise to have a chat with me. We do regular webinars, trainings, but get on our email list first. Just do a practice survey or reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm a LinkedIn guy. Go to LinkedIn, Paul Wright, Newcastle. Send me a message on LinkedIn. Say you're on Chris's podcast, and I'll help you out as best I can. I've got great resources, happy to share. As I said, same deal. You help enough people get what they want, you'll always get what you want. So happy to share all of our resources. Let me know what you guys need. Happy to help.
Oh, that's brilliant. And we'll put the link to your website in the show notes and comments. So appreciate that, Paul.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Hope that was useful for you.
That was amazing. Thanks for your time.
Too easy.
Did you find this podcast valuable? There may be other nutrition professionals out there will also. If you like, share, and subscribe, it's going to help other nutrition professionals make an impact on the world just like you. Thanks.